Hola!
Ni hao.
Guten Tag!
Moi.
Privet?
Alan.
Hey?
Hey, hello. Konnichiwa.
Hey, what's that?
That's what they say in Norway.
Slam dunk, are you ready to make me?
If we didn't say hello in your native tongue, we apologise profusely.
Exactly. Blame James. I've been trying to teach him all these different wonderful ways to greet people, and yet he still gets hung up with hey.
Yes. Anyway, in this series, we're talking to some of our favourite people to find out what normal means to them. And really, does normal even exist?
Exactly. Does it really exist? With that in mind, our first guest today, Tom.
Our only guest today, Tom.
Pardon?
Our only guest today.
Okay.
You said our first guest today.
Right, let's do that bit all over.
No, I'm enjoying this.
No, wait. Let's do that again.
Come on.
No, let's do that again. Do it again.
As you can probably tell, it's a bit late because we had to speak to our guest a bit later in the day because of the time difference. And Oliver's flagging a little bit. But today...
I wouldn't say I'm flagging a little bit. I've just had a bit of an emotional day at the checkout in the supermarket. That took a long time.
Okay, we'll talk about that later, shall we?
We'll talk about all that later. But then, I bought a leaf collector, right?
Oh, God. Yeah.
And so I had to collect all these leaves because obviously all the foliage is coming all over the floor. So I vacuum it all up, and then it gets stuck because there's a few wet leaves, and it mulches it down, then it leaves it like a little blockage, right? So I'm in the front lawn today, and I take off the bag because it clicks into a bag, and I was just like, quick look around. So you turn it on again, it'll literally just fire it out. So it doesn't actually, it really fires it over. There was a young lady taking her daughter to school, and it landed just in front of them. Luckily, it didn't hit them, but it landed just in front of them today. And I heard, because at first, to the untrained eye, it looks like a really small hurt animal just splatting on the floor because you got all these leaves which are all wet and congealed together. And I hid.
Oh dear.
I hid there for what seemed an eternity, hoping that they would go. So then I left the rest of the stuff outside because I didn't want the lady to walk past the house and see me there.
Rightly so.
But yeah, anyway, so it's a little bit of a traumatic day for me today.
Oh well.
Yeah.
I've had a very jolly day outside actually.
What have you been doing then today? Let me guess. Exercise.
Yeah, that's been on there as well.
Yeah.
Which has been good fun. More boxing, which has been good fun. I set up a mini gym in my garage as well. So yeah, I've been enjoying being outside as much as I can, possibly with everything that's going on right now. But still trying to stay active, even though it's cold.
Any interesting cameos this week?
I had a really good one actually. I had a proposal.
Right. Okay. For you, or you were helping someone else do it?
I was helping someone else do it, and I also had a really nice baby reveal, gender reveal party.
Cool.
So that the to-be grandmother sent me a message asking me to do the reveal. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, nice.
Really good fun. So I really hope.
Good.
But that's been really interesting as well too. Really exciting to do that. But anyway, on with today's episode. You might know today's guest as Luther Hargreaves or Sir Percival or Billy Bones or even Dickon Tarley. This actor has starred in some of our most favourite TV shows, whether it's BBC's Merlin or HBO's Game of Thrones or most recently the Netflix great show Umbrella Academy. Known for his impressive physique, and we've seen this up close, it is very impressive. Tom Hopper has become something...
I think James has got a bit of a man crush on our guest today.
I have. Anyway, Tom's become something of a health expert.
What was that?
I'm blushing.
Tom.
Oh, Tom. We're not even there yet. You're ruining this intro. I'm doing very well.
Sorry.
So Tom's become something of a health expert recently. And did you know, Oliver, he's actually writing a book about clean eating as we speak. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. He also co-hosts a podcast called Earth Locker. And recently his own son, Freddie, was diagnosed with autism. Tom and his wife, Laura, have taken to social media to celebrate neurodiversity and get everyone talking about autism. So I'm very excited to talk to him about that as well. As you can probably tell, Oliver, I've already got a bit of a man crush. So until then, let's crack on. Welcome, Tom Hopper.
Cool, Tom. Thank you so much, mate, for joining us today. Whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm in the deepest, coldest Canada right now, like in northern Ontario.
Can you say what it is you're up to at the moment out that way, or is it all?
Yeah, so we're shooting the new Resident Evil movie over here. I seem to spend a lot of time in Canada at the moment. Like a lot of stuff seems to have got the go-ahead over here. So I'm here quite a lot, but normally I'm down in Toronto in the city, but we're up in, like I say, northern Ontario. So so we're shooting the new Resident Evil reboot, which is a lot of fun.
Nice. Since you're in Canada, you can clear up something we talked about the other day. Does the $50 bill smell of maple syrup?
You can see it's really intelligent.
I don't carry
chat,
cash,
yeah.
mate. I don't carry. I'm all about the plastic these days. Don't carry the cash. What? Where did you hear that?
I swear, I'm sure it works. I'm sure I was either I've been had, but I definitely believe it smells of maple syrup.
Of maple syrup.
And I just think
out.
I just think someone saw James and thought, no, he looks like the type of idiot who'd walk around rubbing a 50 together, going,
Literally there, just go,
money, yeah.
Maple.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we were saying earlier about when we met. So how long ago was that? That was...
Oh, man. 2013, was it? 2012, 2013, somewhere around that, I think.
A couple of years, quite a few years ago now.
Going on from our thing is normal, what's normal, and everything in between. So what was your normal growing up? What was a classic Sunday, for example, with you?
Classic Sunday, probably as a kid, I would say playing rugby in the morning. Speaking of which, I would get up and I remember very cold mornings and going up and going to rugby training or going to a rugby game and playing that till around sort of like lunchtime. And then my mum would always have some kind of roast. So my to give you a bit of background, I grew up in a single parent home, so my mum raised me and my brother alone. So she would try and be. We'd see my dad. My dad lived down in Bristol. We'd see him like every other weekend or whatever and go on holidays with him. But primarily my mum raised us alone, and she always tried to do everything that was like the mum and the dad. So she would always make sure she'd be there for our rugby games and watch us play football or whatever and all our sports. And then she would always make sure that she would have dinner on the table and have a roast, at lunchtime. But we had I come from very humble beginnings, really. I come from a miners town, an old miners town called Colville in Leicestershire. And, we would live a very simple life, really. There was the idea of doing what I do now seemed so far removed from what the life I lived then. It just almost seemed impossible, really, to kind of reach that. Which I suppose is the reason why I ended up doing it, because I saw it as something unreachable, and I've always kind of reached for the unreachable, because my granddad, who was a big part of my life, always said, go for your dreams, never ever not go for your dreams. So even though it felt unreachable at the time, it always felt like something that I had to go towards no matter what. And kind of, I never wanted to do, this is the thing that's what interesting about the word normal. It's like I never wanted to go into the norm of like that town, which was sort of just go down that standard route. And, a lot of people ended up sort of on the dole or like just going into some apprenticeship. And I was like, I just could never see myself going down that route. But, but for the most part, my childhood was very normal, for want of another word,
Yeah, so in terms of like
how
the actual
how did you get into the drama side then?
Basically, it's a really funny story, this. So it was, do you remember at school, they had, I don't know, how old are you boys?
We're about. I think there's about 11 months difference between us.
It's like the David Brent thing. I'm in my 30s.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it. That's good enough. Yeah.
So I use that one. So I don't know if when you were at school how you guys did it, but when you're going into your GCSEs, you had like a choice subject that you could like choose. There was like a whole different load of subjects, and like PE might be in one, and all those. And I had this free choice subject available. So one of them was drama, and I was like, that sounds like a DOS subject. That sounds like something I can DOS around in and not have to do too much work, right? And I decided to take it, and it ended up being the thing that I enjoyed the most, because little did I know, like growing up, I was always goofing around and like playing characters for like my family and just like pretending to be people. Like I'll be watching Prime Minister's Question Time with my grandparents, and I'll be doing impressions of like John Major and Tony Blair and stuff. And I'd always be doing like impressions and stuff. So I never really knew that I was kind of a performer at heart anyway. But I suppose when I got into doing drama at GCSE, that was when I was like, oh man, I quite enjoy this. I get a kick out of it. And you know what's interesting is I started to get, because I'd always done sport. That's one thing I'd always done. I'd always like played different sports. I started to get the same kick out of performing as I did at performing on a sports field. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing of, you know, that kind of elation feeling you get when you score a goal or a try, or you crack a brilliant shot at cricket, or that feeling of a team environment, of everyone like kind of being together. And then if it's the same thing on a stage. I started to, when I got a laugh, or when my peers said, oh, that was really funny, or that was good. It was that feeling of performing that kind of translated across, that I was like, oh man, this is good. I feel like I'm part of a team here, and we're doing something to achieve something, as opposed to just doing it for the laughs. It was like achieving a great performance at the end of it, exactly like as a sports team. And that was part of the kind of the bug that I got, really, that enjoyment factor of enjoying the win, I suppose. That it was like, yes, that was a good performance.
Yeah, Sean, was there any, well, I suppose it'd be a school, it's more like theatre, isn't it? So was there more of a play that you did what really caught your imagination? Thought, actually, I really, as I say, you're playing in front of an audience and you get in that thing, everyone's, and you know, like if you're doing theatre, especially if you've got one bad part, it can ruin the whole thing. So it's like everyone's kind of got to go together with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It really is that team environment. You got to hold each other up, haven't you? And I think that goes through into the TV and stuff now as well. But yeah, I think, so there was one show, I mean, there's a couple really, but there was one particular one that really stands out in my mind of when I was at school. And I did a musical. And I at the time, I used to sing a little bit as well. You know, don't anymore, boys. It's,
you can do now if you want to, mate.
I'd rather not.
We're always after a jingle.
Yeah, I'll come up with something for you. But so there was this musical. So like they have this end of year school musical every year at my school, and they did this one called "The Return to the Forbidden Planet." Right, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's loosely based on Shakespeare's The Tempest. And it's got all these like 50s, 60s rock and roll songs as the music. And there's this one character. So, you know, Ariel in The Tempest, like the fairy that protects Prospero. So Ariel in Return to the Forbidden Planet is a robot on roller skates, right? And he's like the servant to Prospero. And it's all set in like space. It's all like a kind of a Star Trek-y kind of thing. And so I'm this robot on roller skates, and I'd seen this musical like years before when I was a kid. So the idea of playing this guy, this roller skater robot, was quite appealing to me. So anyway, I ended up doing the job, getting the part, and I've never had such an incredible feeling every single night I went on stage. It was like this, it was the closest thing I'd feel to like magic. It really felt like magic. It felt like with the lights coming on and all the band and the music and the feeling that you go on stage and you see all those people, you'd see the kind of like dark images of all the people in the audience. And when the music would start, and you knew that there's certain parts that you had to make funny, or it was your responsibility, you know? And it was just this huge exhilarating feeling. And I remember thinking at the time that I wanted to have that feeling all the time. I just wanted that feeling. And that was the first time, I think, where I thought I would want to do it forever. But it felt so unreachable from this like little school in middle of Leicestershire. I was like, well, even the idea of actually doing anything like that, going down to London, just going down to London seemed huge for me.
So I think you went to college to study it afterwards.
Yeah, so that's the next thing. I suppose for me, like I've always seen it as like a step at a time. Ultimately, like I have like a long-term kind of goal in my head of where I see things going for myself. But it was always like, right, okay, well, what's the next step on the ladder? What's the next thing to get me to that ultimate goal in the long run? And again, things do feel untouchable, like drama school, right? I knew nothing about drama school. I'd heard of a couple of them, but I was told that was the way to, if you want to be an actor, if you want to be a performer, that's the way you got to do it, where we were from. And so that I just auditioned for a drama school that it was my drama teacher at the time. She knew a kid that went to Rose Bruford College, and she was like, you should go and audition there. And that was the only one that I knew of or had heard of, and she was like, you should audition there. And that was more of a straight acting course as well, because ultimately as I carried on doing it, I got more and more into the acting side of things as opposed to the singing part, probably because I couldn't sing very well. So the acting came a little bit stronger. But I always felt, this was the thing with me as well, like I never felt I was very good. I always felt like there was people better than me, because even in my school year, you know, there was people that were stronger actors than me for sure, but I always felt like I could give my best. That's one thing I always did, was I gave my best. I worked super hard. I would always like look to improve, and I wanted to learn. That was the biggest thing. I was like a sponge. I just wanted to learn. I wanted to know how to do it better, and I would watch those actors that were better than me and go, what is it that he's doing this? I was like, oh, that's good. I've not seen it done like that before. And I still do that now. Like I always tell Robert Sheehan, who plays Klaus in the Umbrella Academy, like there was one scene where I was watching him and my line was next, and I was too busy enjoying his performance and like going, man, that's good. That's good what he's doing. I wonder, it's really good. And then there was this silence after he finished his line. I was like,
eyes just looking
weird.
at you.
And everyone's looking at me. I'm going, yeah. Like that, like completely out of the scene. But yeah, so that's one thing that I always struggle with as a young performer. I think that I never really felt like I was good enough, especially when getting into drama school. You know, you have to do Shakespeare, and there's all this criteria that you have to do to get in. And I really knew nothing about Shakespeare going to college, and you had to do this big Shakespeare monologue to get in. And I went in, did a poor version at best. So you have to do a Shakespeare and then a contemporary one at the time. So my contemporary one was like, fortunately for me, like it played to my strengths. Like it had a nice bit of comic timing in there and stuff, and I could enjoy it. I could bring any strengths I had, I could bring to that. And the head of acting came to me at the end of my audition, and this Rose Bruford, you had to do it in front of everyone. It wasn't like a private audition. Yeah, there was like all the other auditionees there, like a little audience. And so it made things 10 times worse because everyone's watching you. And I had no idea if my Shakespeare was any good or not. I just sort of blagged it. And at the end of the first audition, the head of acting at the time came up to me and said, "Can we just see you for a second?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And still like bricking it, you know. I was like so nervous. And he was like, "Have you done much Shakespeare before?" And I went, "A little bit, you know, not loads, but like a little bit." And he was like, "Yeah, because it was awful. Because Shakespeare was awful." He goes, "Your contemporary was very good. So we'll see you again, but I want you to go and work on your Shakespeare. Go and find someone, get an acting teacher and work on your Shakespeare and come back for the recall." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I kind of left with this real like bittersweet feeling of like, "Oh my God, I've no idea how to fix this." But anyway, I was fortunate enough to be a part of Leicestershire Youth Arts, which is like a thing that plays up to Edinburgh Fringe Festival and stuff. And there was a guy there called Bob who would like run the whole thing. And I just went and spoke to him and said, I need my Shakespeare to be better. And we spent like an entire week every day working on my Shakespeare and trying to make it better. And I went back for my recall, and I managed to go through all this process of this entire day. They really like grill you at drama schools to get into them. It was a real like process. They're trying to find out your personality as well. That's the thing, is like if you'll actually fit into their mold of what they want to see from a student, whether you're receptive to the way they do things. And I got through to the final stage, and that's when you have to like do your Shakespeare again. They redirect you and they do all these different things. And I got back to the point where, so I worked and changed the whole thing. And for a start, actually got an understanding of what I was saying. I had no idea what I was saying. I did this generic Shakespeare chat, as I was doing it. And then Bob kind of worked me through how amazing Shakespeare really is. You learn like, oh my God, like Shakespeare's mad. It's so good. And I started to understand exactly what I was saying on each line, because I think that's why Shakespeare is amazing, is that every single line matters. There's not one thing that doesn't matter. It all has to be said, and it's said in a particular way for it to count. And we just worked that kind of crazy map to get through the speech. And then fortunately, when I got through to that final stage at the drama school, the head of acting came up to me at the end, and it was like, better, like that. I was like,
thanks.
Good, okay, good. And then fortunately I got into Rose Bruford, and then that was the beginning of 3 amazing years of my life where I continued to have that kind of. My attitude was, I'm not as good as any of these people here. I need to learn to be better and to be like the best version of what I can be to go out into the industry. But you learn so much about yourself at drama school. I think more than anything, what's wrong with you, what you're getting wrong, rather than what you're getting right.
So when you came out of drama school, and you've built up your craft, obviously your confidence is probably a lot higher as well in terms of going into the industry, as you say, with that work ethic of being your best version of yourself and going like that. So were you, obviously being a tall guy, was that anything when you went for the first roles and everything like that? Did you get like go for roles and you get there and everyone in the waiting room to go in is all like 5 foot or something like that? Do you ever come across anything like that?
Yeah, I have had experiences like that. Yeah. I mean, it's usually when you went for like adverts, where they just see so many different types of people. And you would always see the same guys in there, and you'd be like, oh, hello again, mate. All right. You do
there's like an etiquette, isn't there? In the UK castings, there's always an etiquette when you go into the audition room and everyone's your best mate. And you can't...
Yeah. I always found that if you did spark a conversation in those environments, there'd always be one that would try and put people off. There'd be like one numpty that would be like particularly arrogant or is like seriously insecure. So it'd be like trying to make you feel about yourself or something.
Yeah.
We had this guy that came in and was like talking to us about how to stand out in the industry, or like if you'll need like a job to fall back on, or you need to know like what you're putting out there, because there's 100 of you, say, so what's going to make you stand out? And at the time I happened to be reading like a bunch of different things on Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was like a random thing that I was just happened to be reading. And I saw that he had branded himself. One thing he wanted to do was stand out. So he was like, I'd get a bunch of muscle to stand out. And one thing they told you to do at drama school, right, because it's all about opening up and like being free and like all this, right? They're like, don't do weights. They said, don't do weights. And that was like a moth to a flame for me, because I was reading all this stuff about Arnie and about branding himself. And I was thinking, you know what? There's not that many like British guys out there like that are a little bit bigger and have got a bit of muscle on them and sort of stand out in that way. And I was like, I'm going to start hitting the weights. Screw it. So I remember coming back after the summer and I'd hit it really hard. I'd like been training every single day. And I when I first went to drama school, and because the first year they told us to not do weights or anything, I became a complete beanpole. I was so skinny, and then started like smashing the weights over this one summer into second and third year. And I remember my movement teacher at drama school going, "You've put on some muscle, Tom. Are you doing weights?" Like that. And I went, No. just blatantly lying.
10 press-ups before bed?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. All my mates there knew that I was doing it. So there was this kind of silence in the room, and I went, no, it's weird, isn't it? And they were like, yeah, I mean, you really, like, put on some, like, muscle on your shoulders and your arms. And I went, yeah. So the same thing happened to my brother. We just naturally kind of, like, have done this. I don't know, it must be genetics or something. And, I mean, it was hilariously obvious that I'd clearly been doing weights, but I just blatantly denied it. And I kind of enjoyed it because, like you say, Ollie, like, there was an idea of like breaking the mold and thinking that and I've always done that, I think. I've always thought outside the box of, I've not always conformed. I don't like conformity if it means that it might be a detriment to me progressing or like to the people around me progressing, or if it's like a team progressing. I'm like, no, let's hang on, let's question that. Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily just go, no, I'm not doing it. It would be like, well, why? What's the reason for that? How is that benefiting us? Because for me, it's all about the long-term goal. I just couldn't see from where I was standing. I was like, I don't get that, because at the minute I'm nothing. I don't really stand out. Like there's so many of a version of me, and I thought, wonder if I can find a way where I can stand out into. So when I get out into the industry, if a criteria comes up, they go, actually, that's Tom, and that started to happen because I got like I put on quite a lot of size. So that when I got into the first year of graduating, I was going put up for roles like a debt collector with a baby face, or something like that. I was like, that's me. Yeah. So, like there were certain roles that it wouldn't be a lot, that's the thing. My agent said to me when he took me on, he was like, I don't know necessarily where you're going to fit in the industry because there's not that many roles that come up for someone like you. But when they do, I think you might have a good chance. So he wanted to take a chance on me and taking me on and representing me. And that's kind of what started to happen. It was like just hardly any auditions. And then I would get one that the breakdown would come and I thought, well, that's me. I could do that. So that's how I sort of started to get a bit of momentum, I suppose, and that was all because I went, well, why do we not want to, shouldn't we be doing weights? And I think sometimes you do need to question whether those sort of rules, so to speak, are actually for the benefit of you and your career. Yes, you might get freer shoulders, but are you going to get a career and jobs because you've got freer shoulders? Probably not.
No, sure. No, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, did you find as well though that like with the whole training process, that you found yourself set up when you went into roles, say like in Merlin or in Black Sails, where obviously the part demanded a presence, shall we say, in your physique? Did that, I wouldn't say hinder you, but did that in your head be like, right, I need to bulk up, I need to get to here's like a body fat percentage I need to get to, or something like that? Did that all come into the prep as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I look back now on those times and I put a lot of pressure on myself because I think I'd gotten to a point in my career and where I was looking to get to the next step in my career, well, the next point of success or whatever it is. There was a point where, remember when like 300 and things like that came out and like different movies where people were like jacked and it was all about they'd gone through this crazy transition and stuff. Well, when we did Black Sails, that was kind of seen for us as like our version of that. And it was like, we have to look this good. And our trainers and the people that were on the show were saying that, and we were having to send photos to the network and see how we're looking and everything. And so we kind of put that pressure on ourselves. We weren't really getting it from them, but we put it on ourselves and thought, right, this is the opportunity to be the best shape of our lives. And that probably, looking back, wasn't that healthy, really, because it was an unnecessary pressure, because that show spoke for itself in terms of in performances and the storylines and everything outside of what we looked like. That was like a very small element of it in the end. But we all wanted to look a certain way, but I really enjoyed that process because that took my body into a whole new level of training, and the way I look at training now, and the way I look at performance in training and sustaining it for a long period of time, because the way I look at training now is about longevity and health. And I actually made some mistakes in that period where I ended up getting injured, and have learnt from those things and thought, that's not the way to do it,
Yeah.
So I think I met you boys when I was in the middle of like kind of going quite hardcore.
You were training because we made the mistake of doing a circuit session with you at the hotel. And I've never looked at a medicine ball the same way since.
That's right.
Yeah, because you were starting to get in. It was the first time we'd met you, so it was a case of he's definitely a big unit anyway. Who's this bloke like destroying? Like, have you seen my legs? I'm not supposed to do any squats. What's going on here? And it was that type of thing. But you're obviously really into it, but also educated into what you were doing.
That was the thing, yeah. I there was a big part of it for me that was the education part, because I started to, again, I started questioning. I was like, well, why is that, and why is this that, and why is it better to do it like this way? And that's the way I've always thought. And I think questioning and sort of querying stuff is it's a way of always staying hungry as well. You want information, you want to know why things are the way they are. And that was certainly the way in training. And I started to look at the same thing with health and diet and nutrition, and decided to educate myself on that. And that's a deep dive in itself, bloody hell, that I ended up doing. And it's a big part of the way I live my life now, and the way I raise my kids and everything. And I think I have my career to thank for that, in the way the opportunities it's given me. And then because of my own general personality, it's put me in a position where I've been able to question certain things that actually have been a benefit in my real life and for my family's life. If I hadn't have gone down those rabbit holes, then and I wouldn't have done that unless I'd got those jobs.
Yeah. Definitely. When you say you had an injury, it wasn't like it wasn't like you banged your foot, though, was it?
No, I mean, I've had a couple, but I herniated 2 discs in my back. It was pretty bad. Like for 2 years, it was probably about a year and a half from the injury actually happening. It was about a year and a half of me trying to deal with this searing pain. And I shot this 3rd and 4th season of Black Sails with this injury. And every doctor that I saw was like, you're going to have that disc snipped off. It's like pushing on your nerve and everything. And I was doing everything to not have surgery, because I just didn't want to do that. Like it was like this thing of questioning, well, why? There's got to be another way. And I knew like other people were like, yeah, mate, who'd had it, and were like, yeah, mate, you're going to have that surgery eventually, no matter what, that's going to have to come off, that disc, because otherwise it's not going back in. And then I came across a company called Regenexx, which is a stem cell company that do stem cell injections taken from your bone marrow, and they spin it and turn it into stem cells and then inject it under ultrasound into the injured area. And I knew someone that had it done previously, a mate's dad, and he had this result that was amazing. So I went and had this thing done in Denver, Colorado, and it healed the disc. Like I woke up 2 months after the procedure. After 2 years of solid pain, like this, waking up every single day with this searing pain down my leg and my back, and just having to try and carry on. I mean, it aged me, that injury, it really did. And I woke up and was like, I got out of bed and I went to the toilet, like just as normal. Like, and normally I'd be like, like I'd have this pain. And I didn't realize until I was whizzing that I was like, hang on a minute, where's the pain? And then as I was whizzing, I was so excited that I started bending over like this. So I was like, oh, the pee.
Yeah.
And I was like testing it out, and I was like, oh my God, the pain's gone. And it was like this miraculous thing that happened. So I tell people all the time now that I've got injuries, because I've actually got a bit of a shoulder injury at the moment. So I'm going to go have stem cells on my shoulder because And that's a labrum tear. And normally they tell people that's like a big reconstructive surgery. Whereas through stem cells, same thing again, you can get that healed. Same with like rotator cuff tears and things like that. So I tell people all the time now that are being told, oh yeah, I've been told I've got to have surgery, got to have this, got to have that. I'm like, there are other options out there. Always question why, because stem cells, like if you go to the right people, there are miraculous things they can do. You know, and that's where I always say to people, do your own research, you know, like really like do a deep dive on it, because the people that are doing it right are getting it spot on. But there's some proper clowns out there that are claiming they're doing stem cells, and people are going to them and they're getting a real botched job. So, but yeah, I can highly recommend Regenexx, the company that I went through.
So with obviously Umbrella Academy, congratulations on the very big success of all that, by the way.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's good.
Talking about, like, obviously, I assume part of it is a bodysuit with what you're wearing to do stuff like that. I assume.
Just not my legs.
Yeah, just a little bit, yeah. But did you have to do like any training for that at all? Or was it a case of, we'll work around you with the prosthetics and stuff?
So initially, the first season, the first conversations I had was to bulk up as much as possible for the role, because they were going to add like bits of prosthetic to my existing body. So I started like bulking up and was like hitting the creatine and trying to get as massive as I could. So at the start of season 1, like I'm like pretty big. And but as we were about to start shooting, they said to me, it's going to be a lot easier to do a suit because you're going to have to be in prosthetics for like 3 hours every single morning otherwise. So we'll do a suit and then we'll do a prosthetic job for when you're not got your clothes on and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay. But I'd been bulking up for like the last 4 months. So I immediately was like, right, I'm trimming down these calories. So I gradually kind of leaned down throughout the season. And so you can kind of see that in season 1. You can kind of, the continuity is pretty bad because I started to slim down. Then in season 2, I'm sort of more my fighting weight. But the only thing that happened in terms of training after that, once I knew it was going to be a suit, it was more like the fight scenes and stuff, right? I had to figure out how I was going to fight in this massive suit because it completely changes the dynamics of your body and like the weight that you're carrying. So you're carrying like I'd say another like 20 pounds of weight really. So when you're doing like the big kicks and stuff that my character does, it's I had to start to learn how to do that. So like I started doing fight training on my own with a weighted vest all the time. So I always had that extra weight and I was doing like jumping kicks and stuff. So when I didn't have the weighted vest or the suit on, I felt like lightning, you know, because it was like you just didn't have that extra weight. So that was the only real thing, is like learning how to fight properly and make it look natural with the suit on, because it can be pretty cumbersome.
Mm-hmm. Oliver and I have seen it as well. Being a tall guy in acting isn't as common as being a smaller guy in acting, shall we say?
Yeah.
Do you always get the "oh wow, you're tall" comment when you walk in? I'm still trying to figure out how the best way to deal with that, because I'm always like, thanks.
Yes. Your average height?
Yeah, exactly. Pat them on the head.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, like little hobbits. Hello, followers.
I remember when we were filming Potter, and there was times when we'd be doing a scene, sat down, and obviously everyone's relatively the same bit, and then we'd have to do another bit where we'd be standing up, and we would either be right towards the back, or the people we'd be talking to would literally be on an apple box, so they're not quite level, but they're still like around here. To try and keep it with that thing, I suppose. I don't quite understand why that is, but
yeah, the logistics of shooting being a taller actor, I think, are tough, right? Because you either get the other actor on a box, like you say, and then on Black Sails, right? When we were doing a beach scene, instead of bringing a box in, they'd dig a hole for me in the sand. So I'd just been stood in this little ditch. Like Luke Arnold, who played John Silver, hated doing scenes with me because they'd all. I mean, I think he had a bit of a short man complex anyway. But even though he's not actually that small, but I think I gave him it, you know. Yeah. But they always had to. There'd be this like shout out. Okay, can we bring in Luke's box? All the time. And he must have hated it.
I think that's the thing that people don't quite understand if they're a bit shorter, or shall we say normal height. Our normal is anytime you go into a hotel room, the sink is predominantly really low and stuff like that.
Really low.
Anyway.
As are toilets.
Yes, that's my excuse for my aim anyway.
Shower heads are the worst in hotels.
Shower heads. Yeah, shower heads are particularly bad. Yeah. When we renovated our house, I was away shooting, and I said to my wife when we were renovating, we were getting the bathrooms put in, I was like, please, just make sure the shower head is high. Because if I get back to my own house and my new bathroom and I'm like clanging my head. But that's a tall man problem, hitting your head on lamps, low-hanging lamps and lights.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember we were doing a premiere in Amsterdam, and we're staying in this hotel, which was kind of like a load of houses which they just knocked through and made into one big hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Or big townhouses, but all the beams in between were quite low. And I remember the one morning I got up to get out of bed, and I jumped up, but this beam was only about 5 foot tall. I'm 6'3", and I literally knocked myself out and woke up a couple of minutes later, like with.
Oh my God!
Which is
huge egg on my
bizarre, coming
head.
from the country which is statistically got the tallest people on the planet.
I know, that's what surprised me about it. But
Jesus.
ever since then, I kind of like doing a ninja roll out of bed just to make sure.
I used to do it on Black Sails. The beams across, like, so these ships on Black Sails were designed exactly to the specifications of what those ships would have been like back in the day. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you now, people weren't that tall back in the day.
No.
People were not as tall as Billy Bones, my character, guaranteed. And I smashed my head on those beams so many times. It was unbelievable. I reckon I must have taken so many brain cells out during that shoot.
So Tom, I know, like, obviously we met when you just finished Merlin, or you were just, I think you filmed the final season of Merlin.
I think we just finished it.
Just finished it. And then, but you've done Doctor Who, Game of Thrones, Black Sails. Is there, like, are you a nerd at heart, or is it just something that, not that they're nerdy things, but you know what I mean? There's a fancy.
What are you saying, James? What are you saying?
He's
going to be in a hole a bit like you were on the beach, Tom.
I've got a telescope there and a Lego
should
set
dig
there.
it.
I'm a nerd, so I can say this. But
that's a cracking telescope you got there as well.
Thank you. Yes.
Don't get him started on it.
Telescope nerd.
Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah. So, do you like to watch those kinds of shows anyway, or is it something that it's not something you would watch, which means you can dive into it even more?
I suppose when I was a kid, I was. You know, like growing up, I loved playing at knights and superheroes and stuff like that. Like, I loved it, and I used to watch a lot of like superhero stuff more than anything as a kid. But I was never really into, like, I never really got into Game of Thrones until I got cast in the role. You know, I was like, it wasn't really something that I'd taken a huge amount of notice of, because those kind of roles are, I think they've come to me because of, you know, what I'm putting out there, you know, like a bigger guy and stuff, and those kind of roles I guess I gravitate towards. And I do enjoy, that's the thing, there's a difference between, I don't particularly enjoy watching those shows for my own enjoyment, but I do love being in them, because they're little boys' dreams, right? Like running around on a pirate ship playing with swords, and then riding a horse into a castle, and riding an open plain with a sword, and like fighting people with fire, you know, in Game of Thrones, and the dragon that's there that's actually a rock with some dots on it. You know, those things are, you get a massive kick out of that. I love doing those things, but I've never really particularly enjoyed watching them. I think a lot of people would make the assumption that that is the kind of thing I like to watch, but I actually really enjoy things like simple comedies, you know, like the things I love to watch are things like Modern Family and Friends and things like that, like very simple comedies. And a lot of documentaries. I watch so many documentaries now, and I'm always, because the thing is for me, I sometimes there's certain things that I like, the entertainment side of things, but entertainment for me a lot of the time is diving into a subject of like learning about something and having another view on something. Like the Social Dilemma I just watched recently and was like, oh man, that's really interesting. And I love what kind of things that springs off in your head of looking into other things. Like it's like when that the Game Changers documentary came out last year, and all about veganism, about being plant-based and stuff. And I'm always someone that, again, like I say, questions why. And I wanted to do a deep dive on that. And I started to question it, and that's what I love about a good documentary like that, is that it's very well done. So it makes you ask questions at the end of it. It makes you go, that's interesting. Let's look more into that. So that's kind of what I get entertained by, weirdly enough, is like wanting to get more information on something that entertains me.
So with obviously some of your parts you've done, you've got to play an American.
Yeah.
I'm always curious with the question with that. So when you're doing an accent, do you stay in that accent for the whole time you're on set or there at the day, or do you just flip in and out of it as you're working?
I don't, because when I'm chatting to people, I did this once, right? And you see this when you start, for me, this is my experience of it. When I was talking to people as me, but doing my American accent and trying to stay in it, you'd see this like flicker in their eyes that they're like, he's not Tom anymore. They'd be like, he's not, what's going on? And
he's gone all big time.
Like, method, what is he doing? So, and I didn't like that. So I immediately like stomped on it and was like, nah. And on Umbrella, we have dialect people there to make sure that we're on point anyway. But I like to try and like because it almost gets to a point when you're doing a character and you're learning the lines that the accent starts to come into whatever the script is, right? So whatever the lines are, the accent fits to that. But when you're doing it, unless you're ad-libbing an entire scene, I feel like you can, I feel like I can jump in and out of it when I need to. And just before I'll do a take, like I'll run them a few times to get back into it. But you know what it's like, when you're jumping in and out of scenes, once you're back on set and I feel like once I'm back in the scene, then it flows all right. I've managed to find my own way with it now. It was quite scary to begin with. Accents are terrifying in a lot of ways, I think, for actors, because America's a big country, and there's a lot of actors in America that would want to be doing the role that I'm doing in Umbrella Academy, say, for example. And there's a lot of responsibility to get that right. Like, I don't want to screw that up as a British actor. So I take it very seriously and make sure that, I'm doing my hard work. And also, like Emmy Raver Lampman, who's American on the show, and American in real life, I always said to her, like I said to her at the very beginning, because I had a lot of scenes with her, I was like, please pull me up on anything you hear. Please pull me up. And she's great at sort of coaching me, for want of a better word, making sure that I'm on point. So sometimes she's brutally honest, but she's pretty good for the most part. Yeah, you do. Because America's tough as well, because there's so many different dialects in America. So you kind of have to decide whereabouts you're from and then stick with it.
Yeah. I
always worry about the trip word. There's always, if I'm doing an accent, there's always a trip word.
Oh yeah.
And I can remember I did a show in London and I had to be from the northeast, so just outside of Newcastle. So
that's a tough one, mate.
I actually had to go to a stag do in Newcastle anyway. So I ended up then leaving the stag do after it finished and went on to this little town of Blythe, like north of Newcastle, which is where it's a real life character as well. So I actually wanted, so I literally just spent an afternoon in a pub being that guy talking to everybody. But I kept trying to...
Did they buy it?
Well, eventually I got in. I told the guys who were working there what I was trying to do. So eventually they were saying, "Oh, it's my mate he's just come back from overseas." But my trip, it actually worked really well.
He's Venezuelan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the trip word I kept having was family, and I don't know why. It took me forever and a day to end up saying family, but in a Geordie accent. But it was like,
So how did you do it?
I haven't done it in ages. How would I do it? Family?
It was all,
we did that one. We did a show in which was set in Dudley, just down the road from. That's where my mum's from, that part of the world, anyway. And so we can do that accent pretty well because my nan and granddad lived in that part of the world and all that. So the first audition we did, we were so broad. The casting director's like, "Could you tone it down a bit because we don't actually understand what you're saying."
Yeah.
Anyway, to get off accents and everything like that.
Yeah.
In terms of like when you're obviously at the moment as well with your new podcast that you've been up to with your mate Robert Sheehan. How did you guys meet? Did you know before you did Umbrella, or
no?
We friendship involved from doing that.
Yeah, it did. It evolved very quickly, which is an odd one, really, because me and Rob are very different in so many ways. You know, the way that he lives his life and the way that I live mine. But then it's what's so great about people, I think, is that, you know, they can be so different fundamentally as people, but then their ideas and what they want for the world and the people around them and the way they look at things, you find some kind of unity. And that's what me and Rob did. You know, we just shared ideas and goofy conversations and stuff, and got to the point where we were like, we should record this. You know, so it's basically like a friendship. That's what's so great about podcasts in general, I think, now, is that they're this long form shared conversation and shared ideas about the world or whatever, you know. And that's why I love listening to podcasts, because I never know what I'm gonna learn. And I learned so much from Rob as a co-host, and like the way that he sees things in the world make me open my eyes and go, I never thought about that before. Like it's really interesting how like two people can be different but really find common ground. And but yeah, we didn't know each other before. We met up in Soho for a coffee when we found out we were both casting the show before going out to Toronto to shoot the first season, and kind of hit it off from there, really. Once we got to Toronto, we became very good mates, and it wasn't until the second season of the show when we decided to kind of look towards doing the podcast. But it's been great, man. I think podcasting is so much fun. It really is, because I'm a conversationist. I love just chatting with mates and stuff. So doing that and getting it recorded and getting it out to people, and then obviously as well, like talking to. We've had some like amazing experts on stuff, and people who have had amazing life experiences that you get something from that you wouldn't get normally if you didn't do the podcast. So it's a gift in a lot of ways, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And do you find then that in terms of like with friendships with people, do you find that most of the guys who you speak to on a regular basis is more people in the biz, in like actors or anything like that, or is it more like people from your mates from like growing up in Leicestershire?
It's a mix of both. It really is. Like I on a regular basis, I think about my WhatsApp of what messages are coming in, you know, all the time. Like it's a real blend of actor mates. Like I speak to, you know, the Merlin boys a lot, like Rupert, Bradley, Owen, Tomiwa, and Owen, and then also like my brother-in-law Dan, who builds cars, and he's helping me do a motorbike build at the minute. You know, it's kind of a real blend, because where I live in quite rural Leicestershire still now, and all the people around there are mates that do jobs like they're like builders or plumbers or, you know, that sort of thing. So a lot of my close-knit group of mates there do those kind of jobs. So I like that, you know. There's a lot of people, like there's sometimes if I get recognised going in like Waitrose or in like, you know, Morrison's or whatever, when I go and get my shopping, people will go, are you that monkey man from that show, you know, or whatever. and they'll be like, yeah, and they're like, what are you doing here? And they say that, and like, what are you doing here? Like it's some bizarre thing that I'd be living there. But I guess that, you know, that's normal to me. You know, I've always lived in places like that. I spent a little bit of time living in LA when the start of my career, you know, to kind of get some meetings and stuff out there. But then ultimately, when I'm not working, I like to go back and have, for want of a better word, a very normal life, and just like do the school run and hang out with my wife and just do stuff that everyone else does, because it's, for me, that is normal. You know, I grew up doing that stuff. That's exactly what normal life is to me. I just do something a little bit out of the ordinary when I'm off doing work.
Mm-hmm. You're married, your wife also acts, you've got a daughter and son. So when you're away traveling, how do you, like, when I go away, I've kind of got a switch where although I know I'm going to miss home, I can't think about it too much because I won't be able to focus on that. But then I'll still check in with my wife when I'm away, mainly to video time the dog. But
yeah, it's important.
Exactly.
He needs to see you.
Does she understand it as also because she does the same kind of job?
Yeah, she does understand it. My wife's incredible. Like she's so understanding of me going away. And honestly, I don't know how she does it sometimes, because I spend a day alone with those children and I'm absolutely zapped. So I don't know how she does it 24/7 when I'm away. But yeah, I think it's twofold, you know, because there's a great understanding there, because she understands what I'm doing and how it all works, and like why I might not be able to talk to her for 12 hours in the day because I'm here, there, or wherever. Got terrible signal because I'm shooting up a mountain or something. But she, you know, it's also very hard because she ultimately will want to be doing what I'm doing when she's not being a mum, you know. And I think it is hard for actors, like female actors who want to still be doing it, and they're also trying to be a mum, a full-time mum. It's an incredibly hard transition for them. I think unless as a male actor, you know, you're going to have kids and then decide you're going to be a house husband, you know, we have it a lot easier because there's a connection between a mum and their kids, you know, like, well, certainly in our case, where it's unlike any other, like, it's different to the connection I have with the kids, and she also feels she needs to be with them. So when she goes off to work, she gets this extreme guilt. I get the same guilt when I go away, but there's something that there's a motherly nature connection that they have that is, you know, it's unlike any other. But yeah, she's incredibly understanding. But I find every time I go away, I get that guilt. You know, I feel like I shouldn't be going. I should be staying where I am. And because my wife always says to me, you can go do whatever you want. You know, you've got all this freedom. Like, go and do what you wouldn't normally do with the kids and stuff. And I had this like kind of transition where I feel like I almost like a guilt that I shouldn't be doing stuff for myself. Like, I should always be trying to FaceTime them and trying to like be present. And it is a weird transition when all of a sudden I go from, like, especially this year, where it's been literally just been with the kids and my wife for like 10, 11 months, which hasn't happened, well, since the kids have been born, to being with them all day, every day for an entire year, pretty much. And then going off to work. So this has been the weirdest kind of thing for me recently, actually. This coming out here, especially because I had to do 2 weeks quarantine in Toronto as well. And that was bizarre because I'd had so much time with them, and then all of a sudden it's like just you in an apartment in a massive city, and it's like, what do I do? It's like, right, Netflix.
Yeah.
You know. So it's it's strange, but I have this thing where like I go into kind of self-improvement mode, you know, when I'm on my own. It's like, right, time to like knuckle down, or especially when I'm in prep for a movie or whatever, you know, I double down on training and dieting and all that sort of stuff, you know.
Yeah, but you said, I mean, you talk about obviously with your wife as well, acting, and obviously the two of you are obviously very good at performing, and not just performing, but just being open and getting messages across and stuff. So do you want to tell us about your YouTube channel that you use for, again, with your family life and stuff like that, about raising awareness for autism with your little lad Freddie?
Yeah. So that was something that we got. For people who don't know, we got the news, a diagnosis that Freddie, my son, who's 5, we got the diagnosis of him having autism this year. And we always kind of knew there was something different with Freddie. You know, he wasn't neurotypical, let's say, because he didn't start talking, and the way he was responding and stuff was not the same as other children his age. And then we got the official diagnosis this year, and the one thing we realized was that we went through a very tough period as parents with the acceptance of that, and it felt like a very lonely time, you know, because I think particularly for Laura, my wife, because you feel, I think certainly in Laura's case, she felt like she'd done something wrong. You know, there's this thing where you feel like, oh, what could we have done different? Have we done something wrong? Because the thing is, there's also different types of autism's a spectrum, right? So there's one side of autism where the people can talk and they're very highly functioning, and then there's the type of autism that Freddie's got, which is non-verbal and doesn't communicate conventionally in any way at all. So it's very difficult. Life can be very tricky at times, but at the same time, it's incredibly rewarding because he sees life completely different to anyone neurotypical. He will be excited by snow like any other kid. You've just honestly, the excitement that comes over that kid, or like a tree blowing in the wind, is the most incredible thing to this kid. Like the rain falling from the sky, the way it drops on the patio, he's like obsessed with it because the way he sees it, the way his brain processes it is completely different. And so that's the kind of the thrill enjoyment side of his personality and the way he is. And he's an amazing little kid. But in terms of him entering our world and the things we need from him to do, it's a very difficult process because you're trying to mold them to fit into your world, when actually we learned through the process of him being diagnosed that actually you kind of have to embrace his world. You're going to jump into his world, which is a very different one. But because it can be so difficult at times, and because they're not developing like these other children you see around them, I think as parents you go through this denial and this process of acceptance, like I say. And it was very hard for me and my wife. And when we got the diagnosis, Laura, my wife, came and said to me that she said, I feel like we need to, because we have somewhat of a platform, I feel like we need to talk about this a bit more openly and tell other parents that might be going through this and might be feeling really, really alone and feeling like they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand why they might be feeling the way they were feeling. So we were thinking, well, let's just talk about our process. Let's talk about our experience as best we can, as openly as we can, and about how it affects like a marriage as well, like the relationship between the mum and dad, because that was the toughest thing really, because you both have different views on what's going on. Like I was very quick to go, there's something up here, let's sort it. There's something not quite as it should be. Let's try and get on top of it. I think it might be this, I think it might be that. And me being me, just like went crazy on research and was looking to all the ways we can help his life and make life easier for Freddie. And my wife being in denial for a lot of it and saying, no, he's absolutely fine. Like if I mentioned autism, it would be like a really bad thing. So we were kind of on two separate paths, and eventually we came together on it. We kind of found this common ground of how to deal with this thing that had come into our lives as a thing. So, and ultimately it all came down to, we want the best for Freddie. We adore him beyond belief, and we just want to make sure that he has the best life, because he's entering into a life where people don't see it the same way he does. So that's scary for a parent, because you want the best for them and you just want them to be happy ultimately. So we have looked at all the different ways that we would make sure that he's going to be happy now and in the future. And we want other parents to feel that they're not alone ultimately, because it's a tough process, man.
Yeah, because it's almost, I mean, it kind of goes with what we've been trying to get out with this in terms of like this normality. Like, Freddie's normality is different to say, someone in a normal school environment type thing. But it doesn't mean that it's there's a good or bad to it, just a different type of normal. And say, like, I suppose with the neurodiversity element, what comes with that type of stuff. But I mean, did you, when you were going through like all the researching and stuff like that, did you realize that there was, say, I don't know, like there's like an environment you put him in, what makes it better for him to deal with stuff, be it like food, be it like warmth or anything like that? Is there stuff like that you came across?
Yeah, I mean, there was there's various different things. The biggest one we came across, and this is very controversial, because there's a lot of people on the spectrum that argue this, and that's why I always go back to there's very different types of autism, and in our case this worked particularly well. Was that with food, it was a huge one for us. One common thing with a lot of people with autism that are like Freddie, they have a very particular kind of food that they will eat, right? Because it's to do with texture and to do with the sensory element of food as well as the taste. And Freddie went down this route of only wanting a certain type of food, and then he's always want like things with sugar in and like highly processed, ultra processed food ultimately. And it started to get to a point where it's all he ate, and that's also created the divide again between me and Laura, because she was like, he's got to eat something, Tom, and I was like, but he can't eat that, like he just can't keep eating that. And she was like, what do you want me to do, starve him? And it became this divide, and we had to then find that common ground of like, okay, well, neither of us want him to be eating that. And it was also doing terrible things to his behavior. He was acting, I can't even describe it, like it was almost animalistic at times, like I just was looking at this kid that I was like, I've lost my son, like he's not what he was when he was 18 months. He's like, I don't know how to fix this. And for me, that was a nightmare, because all I do is look at things and think, right, how can I fix this? How can I make this better or right? And Freddie, in a way, has become my and Laura's like ultimate kind of life challenge to make sure that he is okay. So like this is why I go delve into the research and stuff. And I started coming across people's experiences that had done this thing with food, and cutting out certain things in their diet, so such as sugar, dairy and gluten, or anything ultra processed. And me and Laura kind of agreed that we would try this, and as we did that, we saw Freddie change. Like he became so much calmer. He just wasn't as angry, he wasn't as frustrated. There was something that happened. I don't know what it was. There was something in his gut, because there's a lot of research now to do with gut health and gut balance, and certain types of autism. And there's a lot of research to do with microbiota transplants, which is the microbiome. So like all your gut bacteria, they do microbiota transplants now. So they transplant the bacteria of someone else. They take someone else's good, like healthy poo, and put it into a child with an imbalanced gut with autism. And the research that's shown that they had a 70, was it a 70? I think it was I'm going to have to fact check this, but I think it was like over 50% increase in improvement in ASD behaviors, like severe ASD behaviors. But there's this guy, Dr. Jim Adams, that's doing that at the moment at Arizona University, and he's finding some incredible links between the gut and autistic behaviors, certainly in severe autism, that's closer to what Freddie is, like non-verbal autism. And there's kids that, after having these microbiota transplants, after 6 weeks of having them, never said a word in their lives, started talking. So wow. These are like kids are like 8-9 years old who have never talked, and then had these transplants. So there's clearly like a link there that's happening in certain types of research. Now, like I say, that's very controversial. There's a lot of people that would have uproar about that, and I completely understand where they're coming from. But when you have a child that all you want is you're desperate for them to get along in this world and be happy in this world, those sort of things become a possibility to you, that they might be able to say their first word at 6-7 years old. That's a huge thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really positive research,
Yeah. So what have you learnt about autism and the way it's dealt with as a society in general?
It's tricky again, right? Because there's different types, and that's the thing. I think for the highly functioning element, there is starting to become more of an acceptance of it, I think, and there's an inclusion aspect of it. And society's a funny thing, because again, it goes back to that, like, what's normal, right? Because people see something and they're like, it's like when you see a conversation between two people, so like a neurotypical person and someone with autism, and the way that someone with autism, like say someone like fairly highly functioning can hold a conversation, but they say something that is not normal, like that it jars the other person. They're like, yeah, and it jars them. So I think, and it's like this does not compute thing goes on in a neurotypical person's mind. It's like, that's not normal conversation. This person isn't normal. And that's kind of what we've had to break, I think. And like, I think because autism is something that people are becoming more aware of, particularly, like I say, for people who are more high functioning, is there's this thing now, I think, where people will go, oh, I think they might be, are they on the spectrum? There's this, you see this kind of this thing, this turn. But with someone like Freddie, we've had to deal with a lot of, like, it's tricky because, like, my wife always says, you know, when she sort of went to certain mum groups and stuff when she was younger, or when Freddie was younger, and he clearly wasn't doing the same things that a lot of these kids are doing. He would be running around screaming and not conforming to what other kids were doing, and mums would give like looks like, what's he doing? You know, it would be really obvious to them. They're probably not knowing that they're doing it, but there's this look that they're sort of giving that they again, that's not normal. And as a parent, that's very tough, you know, like noticing that about, because they're having an opinion about your child, and that's tricky to deal with. But I think the more like conversations like this, talking about it, is great. And you know, the more me and my wife obviously trying to do the same thing. And I think conversation is the best, and this kind of long form conversation of chatting about it, and not because I'm no expert. I'm literally like not educated on autism at all. I'm talking about from my own experience and what we've experienced with Freddie. I can say that has made a difference for us, and just sort of looking outside the norm, looking outside the box, and going, what else could be going on here? Rather than, because I think that's the thing, is that there is also a thing of like just accepting and dealing with a certain type of autism, you know, like just going, let's make the best of it. You know, like, oh, the child is like this, let's make the best of it. When I sort of look at it and go, but when your child is showing improvements in these areas, surely there's something to that.
Yeah. It would be like saying in a conventional manner, for example, like using the gym, for example, it would be like saying you get to a certain lift and you stop there, even though there's obviously room for improvement. Like, why would you do that in anything, especially somebody's life? You know, they're obviously, I suppose, in some ways it can be romanticized in terms of like, you know, because obviously there are some people on the spectrum who are very focused and they use that and stuff. But obviously on the other side of it, it can be very difficult for families and people living with it. Yeah.
Well, I just think, if there's a way of helping those people cope better with this crazy world that they've been thrust upon, you know, I think why not do it, you know? And there's that's why Dr. Jim Adams, the guy who's doing this amazing research, his daughter has autism, and that's what drives him to do it, because he's like, there's something to this, and he's coming from a personal point of view, and that's why I trust his research, because what he's doing is driven from his own personal experience and wanting to help. So I think totally. Why would we not look deeper into that? Because it's certainly not hurting anyone. It's only helping people so far.
No, I mean, there was I did watch a short actually a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to find the name of it. It was on the Disney Plus. It was basically about this guy who's got a kid and he keeps flying, and his dad gets really annoyed that he can't just stop, and he keeps flying off. And in the end, he tries to like tie him down and everything like that. And it's actually a really emotional watch. It's only a short. It's not very long, but I'm trying to find the name of it now. But he basically said at the end of it, it's dedicated to all those who can fly, or something like that. And it's really, really well done. But I can't remember the name of it. It was so powerful, and almost to simplify it as well to people who maybe don't necessarily understand.
Yeah, that's a very like simple, clear way to put it. I love that. What a great concept.
Yeah, so the show was called Float, and that was on Disney Plus, and it was it was so moving. It was such a great bit of not just animation, but in terms of just because I was watching it, going, what is going on? Why does this kid keep blowing away? And it was literally the very last bit, because like he basically, the dad, well, I won't spoil it if you want to watch it, but the dad says something and that makes him take a step back going,
yeah.
whoa, what was that? And yeah, it's only about, between 5 and 10 minutes long, but it is really,
I've got to check that out.
Really powerful. Yeah. In terms of right now then, Tom, what does normal mean to you? Like what is a normal day? Obviously there's two normals. There's work Tom and family Tom.
That's exactly it. So I suppose those normals kind of do cross a little bit. So normal right now when I'm on my own, like, so work Tom normal, a big part of my day is revolves around eating and training. They're the two main things, and then obviously going to work and shooting. So I always find there's certain things in my life that I like to prioritize to keep my life, for want of a better word, normal, you know, and it keeps me sane as well as things that I like to do. And training is a big part of that, because I feel training gives you structure, it gives you purpose, and you always means you're driving towards something. If you train with a goal and a purpose, then it gives you that every day, no matter what you're doing. So in between jobs, when I'm at home with a family, normal for me is doing those same things, but just fitting it around family life. So I always try and make sure I can get up with the kids and do the school run, or like get the breakfast ready or whatever. I always try and make fresh breakfast for them. So like I make Freddie like his own little like sugar-free, grain-free pudding thing every night that I cook, and like there's these certain routine things that I do for the family as well. And then outside of that, I always make sure I go and train. You know, I get like an hour where I'm like, right, this is training time, and I train like a maniac for that hour. Like I'm in there and I get the job done.
Yeah, I think that probably brings on to this one. So what's the most normal thing about you?
I suppose the most normal thing about me is my family life. You know, I think for me it's very important that my kids are extremely grounded as they grow up, you know, and live what I would consider a normal life, and they're not. Because I think if there was certain places I could choose to live, you know, that it would affect their upbringing. And I think for me, it's important that they have a very grounded start in life. So I suppose giving them my version of what is normal, and what my wife's version of normal is, in having lots of family around them. And even when they travel with me around the world, you know, to wherever I'm shooting, because they're going to come out with me, you know, to certain, like they come out when I shoot Umbrella and stuff. And even then, it's like our day to day will stay what it is back home in Leicestershire, you know, like we do the same things and we have the same routines, and they'll go to school and they'll do what we normally do. So that's probably the most normal thing. We have no extravagance there. It's very similar to any average family.
Yeah, and so if that's the most normal, what would be the least normal thing about you?
Probably my extremity in terms of what would people consider out of the ordinary. Would be the way I eat and the way I train and the way I look at my self-discipline, I suppose, of like what people would be like, oh God, don't you ever just give yourself a treat? You know, people would see it as quite self-destructive in a lot of ways, but actually it's the opposite. For me, it's all about self-betterment. Having that discipline of doing those things actually makes me a better human, I think, and allows me to give the best version of myself to my work and to my family. So because I make those kind of little sacrifices, but a lot of the things, like my diet now, is what I consider normal, but to other people they will be like, that's mad, why'd you never eat that, why'd you never have that? But to me, I'm like, well, because it's normal to me now, that's just the way I do it. But to most people it would seem like extreme or odd, I think.
I've normally got a couple of questions to ask, which I'm always meant to send people and I never do. First of all, Tom, what's your favourite book?
Oh, my favourite book is a book called Genius Foods by Max Lugevere. That was one that really kind of helped me out on my journey, so I'd say that's one of my favourite books.
Nice. Favourite song?
Probably an Aerosmith song. maybe like Love in an Elevator, I think, is pretty amazing for me. Or I've got so many. That's the thing.
So I'm going to start calling these questions the 3 a.m. questions, because at 3 a.m. you'll be thinking that's what I should have said.
Mate, I know. Yeah, I'll text you and go, oh, can I do a voice note?
Yeah. Which is a voice note across like jaded
and add in
crazy. Yeah.
Pink.
What is your favourite film?
Back to the Future 2.
Oh, good shout. What is your favourite food?
Really well done, like really good chicken wings. When chicken wings are done well, chicken wings.
Nice. And finally, what is your favourite quote?
When Gerard Butler kicks the Persian in 300 and he goes, "This is Sparta!"
Yeah.
And he kicks the guy.
Wicked. Well, thank you very much, Tom. That was all my quick fire questions. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us, mate. Is there anything you want to add?
Boys.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it's been a pleasure, and thanks for asking all amazing questions, especially about like Freddie and stuff, and the message we're trying to get out about autism and stuff, and awareness of that. So that's amazing. And you boys should come on the Earth Locker. We should have you guys on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Definitely.
Our podcast.
Yeah, sure. Are there any main rules to it? Like the pub rules that we have on this one are like no religion, no politics. That's like the only two we've got. But is there anything on?
We are not really. We're a pretty open forum. When you got Robert Sheehan as a co-host, you can't really have pub rules. It kind of like is an open forum. He'll go down any rabbit hole. So it's pretty open conversation, to be honest. People tend to enjoy it because it is that. Like we don't like to put too much on it, and we end up going down to some deep subjects that we never even mean to go down, and then we all end up kind of going, wow, didn't know that. Someone says something quite profound, you know.
Right.
Nice. Well, thanks very much, Tom.
All right, boys.
Enjoy the rest of your shoot and speak soon.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me, fellas.
Cheers.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? Again, whenever we speak to people that we know, we talk about things which we've never spoken before, which is good fun. But yeah, Tom's such a nice guy. We were just saying he's so easy to hate because he's so good looking, such a nice guy. I bet he can sing. He says he couldn't sing, but I bet he can sing.
I know, yeah, he got away with that one, didn't he?
But yeah, really top bloke, and really fascinating to hear, and amazing the work that he's doing with spreading more knowledge about his son Freddie and hopefully helping people in a similar situation.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's bizarre as well, though. When he was talking about it, how little, I suppose, the general people, their understanding on stuff like that is, because obviously, I suppose, like a lot of things, unless it directly affects you, you're not really going to seek it out, are you, or anything like that? So I suppose it does make a lot of sense and help as well that that he's able to share his message using his platform. Yeah,
very good. But that was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So
yeah, so James, is that listening to Tom? Then are you going to go and hit the gym twice tomorrow? And
do you know what I am actually? Really? I already was meant to. Yeah. So I do. Morning is my cardio and weights, and then evening boxing. But no, look, we're just really, really glad that Tom was able to join us today. It was great catching up with him, and especially doing a new Resident Evil film as well. That was such a cool. I thought that was awesome. So I'm really excited to see how that ends up, and yeah, just really cool to catch up with him as well. Very much so. So since Tom is away, and I was thinking he's probably been on just as many planes. Is this your segue? Is this your segue? As Tom is away. Well, he is. He's in Canada, isn't he? Well, yeah, he is. Toronto, so he's away from home. So to get there, Canada. Well, to get there, Tom would have had to take an aeroplane, I'm imagining. So, did you know? Here we go. Here's the segue. Did you know the shortest passenger flight you can get in the world is between Westray and Papa Westray in the Scotland's Orkney Islands, which is separated. 2 minutes, isn't it? It's separated by 1.7 miles of land and sea, so the flight itself lasts 47 seconds. Wow. There's a did you know, isn't it? Oh, right. I thought you were going to say who invented the jet engine. Mr. Engine. No. Whittle.
think his name was Thomas Whittle.
You can't
Yeah.
think. If you're going to give a fact, it needs to be
All right, let me
straight
do-
in
okay,
with...
let
No,
me
you can't look at
double-check.
it. That doesn't count. All right, anyway.
I'm sure his name was Thomas Whittle. His name was... Let's have a look. Well, no, it's not. Not him.
Oh, go on. Who is it?
Like that.
We'll pretend that
Hang on.
you've got a good fact.
Okay, well, I thought you were going to be talking about the jet engine.
Okay,
which
we'll
is
edit
Frank
this so it sounds like
Whittle,
you've done it.
Which was Frank
Whittle. It's Frank Whittle now, okay.
He was actually turned down from joining the RAF in the Second World War, but still wanted to join up, help out with the war effort, and thus the jet engine was made.
Thank you very much, Oliver.
That's my did you know.
But do you know a civilization which were way ahead of their time many, many moons ago? Were the ancient
Okay.
Egyptians, correct? So,
To a point, they were ahead of their time. I mean, they had paper made out of plants. I still don't know how someone, right, stood in the desert one day and was like, yeah, that's the shape. That's the shape I need.
so did you know
Okay.
that, right, here's a fact. You know, when if you go to work and you think, my boss is a real... So imagine you're a slave to a pharaoh, which sucks anyway.
Yes.
So King Pepe II, I think I pronounced that right. Now this
Pepe?
dude apparently ruled for 90 years. And he was really fed up with flies and other bugs pestering him.
Mm-hmm.
So he commanded one of his slaves to be covered in honey to lure all the bugs away from him. Imagine that for a rubbish job.
But his skin was soft. The more I learnt about the ancient Egyptians, the more I don't like them.
Very true.
But then again,
So-
I'm judging them on the standard from, some 2 millennia later.
Yes.
Yeah, they did have a weird connection with the beetle, though.
They did have a connection with the dung beetle, yes, but do you know it's a cooler animal than the dung beetle?
A cooler animal than a dung beetle. I think I could find a lot of animals that are cooler than a beetle what goes around. What would be a cooler animal than the dung beetle?
Well, you have to think about it then, don't you?
No,
I'll
I'm
go
just trying to
straight
think
in.
because we
I'll
were
go
talking
straight
about
in
this
with
with
mine,
Tom. We
right?
were talking about this with Tom, like when you're just told about something and you go straight to thinking about it. A cooler animal than the dung beetle.
It's not hard, you just
would-
name one. It pushes
beaver.
around.
No,
Pardon?
beavers aren't very grey, actually, are they? Cools down.
No, that sounds good. Okay. Let's hear your fact about a beaver. This is my segue in.
Okay, there is more towns in Canada named after beavers than any other country in the world.
Okay, well done. We're going to have to fact check that.
I'm sure I
assume you're right.
Right, check it.
People probably know this anyway, hence by my mug that I've been drinking from. My favourite animal is a hedgehog. Final fact of the day. Did you know a hedgehog has 5,000 to up to 7,000 spikes? And they last for around a year and then they're replaced.
That is, hang on. So as broad estimations go, that's quite a big one when you're talking about an animal that's yay big.
Well, it depends how big it is.
It's got there's about 2,000 needles difference there. Don't do that.
Anyway,
Don't do
Oliver,
that.
you've ruined my Did You Knows for this week, so thank you very much for that. And I think
So, to be honest, I'm still in a wee mood from earlier today, right? So I went to the supermarket and I thought, right, I've literally got 2 bags of rice. Right, just 2 bags of rice. I've already got everything else here. I was making my own chicken dinner, and I thought, right, I need some rice because it's all in the cooker and everything like that. Doing all that. Bought a jet cooker the other day, a pressure jet cooker, really good. Anyway, so I'm making all my stuff in there, chicken teriyaki, and then I thought I just need some rice. So nipped into the supermarket, got these 2 bags of rice. Right, self-checkout. 3 self-checkout things, right, there. All 3 of them had people, idiots, full of stuff. One lady was there and she was scanning individually. She must have had, I'm not exaggerating, about 50 mini lemonade bottles. Scanning them. Each one, beep, beep, beep. Oh, ring the bell. Excuse me, I've run out of space to put them on the scales here. I wonder why. Get it in, pay it, get out. If you want to do it a hell of a lot quicker, here's a good idea. Go to the person over there who can actually scan it quickly for you. Do you want any cash back? Get out. Are you a people person? Because clearly you don't want to talk to someone whose job it is to scan all the contents from an item from a shopping trolley. Rant over.
But everybody, again, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching on YouTube. Alice, thank you very much for editing all this together, cutting Oliver's rants out, hopefully. And hopefully
No. Oh, I need to add one more thing as well, because you never do it.
What?
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Oh, God,
and
no.
Please
No.
click subscribe if you're listening on audio.
No. If you like it, great. If not, no worries. I hate those. I always hate those
What do you mean,
videos.
no worries?
Here's my
you don't
rant.
like it? They'd have turned off by now, haven't they?
Here's my rant. Everybody, you're watching say you're watching a how-to fact on YouTube, so you're never going to need to know again. At the end, Bob's painting tips is, if you like this, click likes and follow us for more. So I've watched it now.
Right, but
anyway,
you realise
if you enjoy it,
no. You realise how this works, though, James. People don't miss the next episode of this, listening to all your Diz You Know facts, because they subscribe. I'll tell you what we need.
A new host.
Crappy merchandise.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? You could have, like, I don't know,
That'll
any
always be
ideas,
the
like a
dream.
T-shirt
Right.
where it just says, like, Did you know?
Let's think
Or,
about this until next time. But until that time, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Slam dunk, are you ready to make me?